a third of the South American World Cup qualifiers for World Cup 2026 have already been played, and we have seen some crazy, shocking results. And today we are going to go through these teams and basically just talk about what has gone on, because 6 out of 18 games have already been played, and all I can say is wow. And there is no best place to start than with Colombia. We love Colombia, and they had an incredible window, a 2-1 victory over Brazil, 1-0 down after 4 minutes, and then in comes Luis Diaz and just absolutely destroys them. 2 brilliant headers late on to seal the game for Colombia at home, which this is craziness. Brazil are obviously, they speak for themselves. They are Brazil, and that Colombia squad is nothing short of average. I'm going to be for real. That the 11 that started that game, there is not, the centre-back partnering was John Lasumi and Spurs reject Davinson Sanchez, right? Striker was Rafael Santos Borré, who's alright, I guess. I like Borré, I think he's okay. And then behind him was an ageing James Rodriguez. This team isn't brilliant, right? Yet Luis Diaz said, screw that, I'm putting the team on my back. James Rodriguez, though, I will say, played really, really well, as always. And Colombia, under Nestor Lorenzo, they're on the way up. Nestor Lorenzo has been at this job and he hasn't lost a game yet. 14 games, 0 losses. Colombia still can't find a way to score that many goals. But defensively, even with that back line not being the best, you trust them to keep a clean sheet, and they are doing it. And in front of the back line, 2 solid defensive midfielders, Kevin Castano playing for Cruz Azul and Jorge Carrascal in Dynamo Moscow. Not the biggest of clubs, but these players, quite young, they've got some potential ahead of them because they have been performing very well for the national team. It's just that attack for Colombia that is worrying. But with the Copa America coming next year, that tournament is going to be insane. Could you fancy Colombia for a semi-final finish? I hope so. I would really like to see them in there. And Juan Cuadrado also was not playing. He was injured for this international break. And on the bench, they had the likes of Yasser Asprilla, who's coming into some form for Watford in the Championship. He's a young talent. So maybe you can see the future of Colombian football going up, because 2014 was peak Colombia. Then it slowly went down. 2018, it was still good. Then Colombia went into an all-time low. Now they want to be going back up for 2026 because it looks like they will certainly make it. Moving over to Ecuador, another country that I do like very much in this, and they had quite a solid window. Didn't concede a goal, got a win against Chile, and a 0-0 draw away in Venezuela. Angel Mena scoring their only goal. And they, similarly to Colombia, their problem is goal scoring, right? They've got an aging Angel Mena who started and scored the winner against Chile. But the story of this team is 16-year-old Kendry Baez, who, if you do not know this guy, where the hell have you been? He's signed to Chelsea, but he can't go there until 2 years or something. At 16 years old, playing at Independiente del Valle, every single time I watch this guy play, he impresses me more and more. The flair, the technique, the dribbling ability, and he's playing with such maturity already. He's got such a bright future ahead of him. Now, the striker position has also been a problem for Ecuador. Kevin Rodriguez started the game. He, in his last game for USG, scored 2 goals, so maybe he's coming into some form. For the national team, he's been okay in the games that he's played, but again, similarly for Ecuador, it's that defense, right? That defense is the story. Preciado playing for Sparta Prague, come on. And then centre-backs, Hincapié, I think, was injured, so he couldn't play this international break. But you have Felix Torres, you have Robert Arboleda, you have William Pacho. Mate, Pacho as well. For Frankfurt this season, I feel like he's been so good. I think I've talked about this guy on a previous video because I just rate him so highly. And he has the world at his feet. At 21 years old, he plays with such calmness. He managed to do a job at left back against Chile. Just brilliant. And Ecuador, similarly to Colombia, look like they will certainly be heading to 2026 and maybe a dark horse to watch out for at next year's Copa America. Next, we have to move on to a team that are absolutely in crisis. 6th position currently is Brazil that I'm talking about, and they haven't won a game in their last 4. A draw at home to Venezuela and a loss in Uruguay, in Colombia, and then a home loss to Argentina. It's not looking good. It started well with a 5-1 win over Bolivia, but since then it's gone nothing but this. It's not looking good over there. And Fernando Diniz, the manager, the pressure will start to pile up on him because with the Copa next summer, Brazil will want to have a good result there. Maybe they are the favourites on paper, you think, with the squad that they have. And Diniz, 5 games with this Brazil squad, 2 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. That for Brazil is just unacceptable. He's just came from managing Fluminense. I think he might be still managing Fluminense. I don't know. But, oh, wait. Okay. Right. Right, managing Brazil and Fluminense, he really isn't having the best of times with the national team right there. Like, he is struggling, right? You can clearly see. And in that Brazil game, right, it was in that Argentina game, sorry, it was better, right? It was an even game, and they got kind of unlucky, right? 1-0, fine. But the recent results, the ones before that, the Venezuela one at home just wasn't good. The one where they lost to Uruguay away, that wasn't good either. The Colombia one, they were winning and then they got it turned around on within the space of 5 minutes. And pressure will start to pile. They've got a friendly against England in March, so we've got to see what happens there. But at the Copa right now, you don't look at them as favourites, even though you should. So that is a big worry for Brazilian fans. However, they did have missing players. Obviously, no Vinicius Jr. available. He is not going to come back. He will be back hopefully for the Copa unless he gets injured again. But he was missing, so maybe you could kind of going forward, you could put a blame on that. Fine. But Brazil, they need to turn it around, or Deniz's job is going to be in trouble, because on this form, there's no way he lasts till 2026, and that's where he's aiming to take Brazil. Now, we're going to moving on to Uruguay and let Darwin cook. Oh my God. Top goal scorer in CONMEBOL qualifying, 5 goals already. Against Bolivia, he was sensational. That first goal, that volley, was just so perfectly placed. Great work by Pelistri and Araujo to set up the goal. Against Argentina, I thought he was sensational. Finished the game off. He was one of the best players in that game as well. He is on fire and he's finding some real confidence in this Uruguay team. Marcelo Bielsa is such a brilliant manager. We've seen him do so well in the past at clubs like Leeds United, Marseille, right? He was at the Chile job for 4 years. He was at the Argentina job for 6 years. So he is a international manager, right? We know that he is capable of managing international countries, and he has turned this Uruguay team around. Diego Alonso, he looked good, and then everything in the World Cup just came unstuck. It just wasn't working. They hired Bielsa, and everything's been so good since. Apart from that Ecuador game away from home, they've been nothing but flawless, and they're the only team that have managed to beat both Brazil and Argentina already this qualifying. They're so good right now, and they could be a potential favourite to maybe even win the Copa America if things go like this. If Darwin Núñez keeps this form that he's on right now, Manuel Ugarte, Federico Valverde, Rodrigo Bentancur, it's a brilliant team, right? Uruguay are a footballing nation. They've got Araujo at the back, who we haven't even talked about too much. This team is certainly good enough, and we've seen that in these games, and they are currently sat second in the table, just 2 points behind Argentina. They're definitely going to 2026, and they're looking at next year's Copa thinking, hang on, we could go to the final and maybe even win this competition. However, we're going to move on to the actual Copa America favourites, which is Argentina, because they're just so good, right? They had that blip at home against Uruguay, fine, but then they came back against Brazil and they showed us what they're all about, right? That even when Messi's not doing it, they've got other players to do it. That backline, Acuna, Otamendi, Romero, Molina, with Martinez in goal, that is as solid as it gets. And these players, they've got that South American DNA, that tenacity in them, that fighting spirit. They're brilliant. And then in front of them, Enzo Fernandez, Rodrigo de Paul, really, really good. Like, this team is certainly the favourites for this Copa, and for a good reason, right? They've still got aging Di Maria. He's 35, but he's still having a good season at Benfica. So this team is brilliant. Like, we know that Argentina are one of the favourites, if not the favourite. In my opinion, they're the favourite to win next year's Copa America, which would just improve Messi's legacy even higher. And we haven't even talked about how good Messi is. Even when he's not scoring, he's still doing something. And that partnership with Julian Alvarez, this international break, we didn't really see it, but we know it's there. And Argentina are top of the table, so that result against Uruguay, we know it was just a blip, and that they are still the best team in the world, in my opinion. World champions for a reason. Dark horses, Venezuela are heading to 2026. You would think so now with this form that they're on recently. They haven't lost a game since the opening game against Colombia. They are just finding that confidence that we've never seen in Venezuela before. They've never made it to a World Cup. They're the only CONMEBOL nation to have never made it. Fernando Batista, the manager, has really done well with Venezuela. They're currently sitting 4th. Who would have thought that after some disastrous results in last qualifying, finishing 10th and stuff, right? But I think the key is centre-mid from Girona. We know how Girona have been insane this season. Yangel Herrera, he controls the tempo of those Venezuela games. And again, I feel like against Peru, against Ecuador, this international break, he was sensational in that midfield for Venezuela. And Venezuela, they'll be thinking that in the Copa America, they'll be certainly hoping for a quarterfinal finish minimum, because they are a good team who are finding the rhythm. And the bottom 4 teams, Chile, Paraguay, Peru, and Bolivia, just absolutely in struggles. All 4 of those teams are in the mud. Peru only made it to a World Cup 5 years ago, and now look at where they are. Gareca's gone and everything has just fallen apart. Now, the manager, Juan Reynoso, I've heard some news that he might have been sacked. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, Peru are not in good form, but you can't really expect them to be, right? There is no standout names, and now we just come to see how Gareca managed to overperform with this team, right? Bolivia, at home, brilliant. Away from home, crap. That is just the reality of Bolivia. They aren't really producing some amazing players in there, but to be fair, like, they did manage to beat, was it Peru in this international break? Like, fairs at home, they will get up some results. And then Chile, man, like, again, they didn't manage to score a goal this international break, and going forward, they've only scored 3 goals in these 6 games. They just don't have any attacking threat besides Alexis Sanchez, who is getting on. And then Paraguay, man, like, they're the best positioned out of them because they've got 2 draws already and a win. But they are another team that didn't manage to score a goal this international break. So these 4 teams all are very similar in terms of profile, in terms of their limits and what they can do and cannot do. And they are looking at that Copa America they could surprise somebody, because everyone's looking at those bottom 4 right now. They're not really it. They're not going to do anything at the Copa. But I'm telling you, if one of those 4 teams is going to cause a surprise at the Copa, I think it can be Chile. I think Chile, because they do have history with football, they do still have some big names. So maybe they could do something at the Copa. But that 7th spot in CONMEBOL qualifying that gets you into the playoffs for the World Cup is certainly up for grabs between these 4, and anybody can get it. Right, thank you guys for watching. There will be more videos soon, and I will see you guys